Hello and welcome to the British Chamber of Commerce Singapore's podcast. My name is Andrew Clark and I am delighted to have with me today Louis Alexander. I want to tell you about this remarkable young British adventurer and professional explorer. He pushes human limits through running and swimming, using adventure to fight dementia and inspire people. He's a two-time Guinness World Record holder. By 25, he became the first person to run a marathon on all 7 continents and to swim a marathon in all 7 seas, achieving both feats in just 633 days. He's rowed across the English Channel, swum from Alcatraz Island without a wetsuit, and summited Mont Blanc. Beyond these incredible feats, Louis raised over £40,000 for Alzheimer research in honour of his grandfather. He's been featured by the BBC, by the National Geographic Channel. He's been featured on Sky News, ITV and more. He's also a global motivational speaker, including speaking at 10 Downing Street. And he has a goal: 10 world records and £1 million raised for dementia research by age 30. So hopefully today we're going to hear some of his adventure stories and draw out some leadership and resilience lessons for our business-minded listeners. Louis, thanks for joining us.
My absolute pleasure. Very happy to be here. Thank you for the kind intro.
What brings you to Singapore?
Well, I started my adventures for many reasons, but one of them was to travel and see the world. Travel was a privilege for all of us, let alone at a young age. And then what I realized is actually maybe I could travel the world through my talks too. So without needing to push myself physically and risk my life, I could actually travel with talks. And last year I set out with trying to find my first few international talks. I did something like 3,500 cold emails last year, to try and reach out, because I don't know people in places like Singapore. And Singapore was one of the first to say yes. There was one school that picked me up. Came over, went great, and now I'm back here. This is my 3rd trip here in the last 12 months. I've spoke at 4 or 5 different schools, the British High Commission last week, the RGS, now here with yourself. It's been really, really great.
And also you mentioned that you've got a sponsorship meeting as well, so presumably drumming up sponsorship for the next adventure.
I hope so. I mean, I was blown away. The only event we've done which has been public was at the Royal Geographical Society last week, and 60 people bought a ticket.
Amazing.
So to be on the other side of the world with no promotion, no advertisement, and for 60 people to buy a paid ticket, I was blown away by the energy, the buzz, the enthusiasm here. And one person came up afterwards and wanted to meet for sponsorship reasons. So here we go, the power of old school networking, right? I have my business cards ready, my postcards for the kids. I'm ready.
That's wonderful. That's amazing. So maybe let's take it back to the beginning. What is it that first sparked your passion for extreme adventures?
Well, you mentioned a few of the things I've been lucky to achieve, and I wish the start of my story was somewhere as dramatic as that bio should lead to, but actually the start of my story is 18 years old, sat in the living room at home talking to my mum, and we were talking about my granddad. And for the first time ever, she started telling me about one of his dreams, which he was never able to fulfill, which was to go off to Mount Kilimanjaro after his retirement from the army and climb the mountain. But he got diagnosed in the end with dementia really young, in his 50s, and he never had the chance. And so when I was 19, I decided to go out there and climb for him, try and take his dream, his plan, make it mine, honour his legacy in the process, and the mountain changed my life. I was lucky to summit. I held his name at the top, the charity, and I went out there for him and that charity, but I returned home with something for myself, which was a newfound passion, a purpose for adventure, for travel, for exploration, for challenging myself, and a purpose that maybe I could use these challenges for something bigger than me, to have a small impact on charity, society. But that was supposed to be a hobby, and that built for about 3 years, from 19 till 22. Like many young people at that age, I was trying to work things out, going through all the lockdowns, the COVID, everything like that. Then at 22 years old, I made the leap to go full-time.
So obviously what happened to your grandfather has obviously had a profound effect on you.
Yeah.
And that's why you've chosen dementia as the cause that you want to contribute to. So with this goal that you have in mind to raise £1 million and 10 world records before the age of 30, with that £1 million, what will that do for dementia research? What do you want that to achieve with dementia research?
Well, in the UK, dementia is one of the biggest killers. It's close to £1 million. I'm sure the numbers in Singapore are quite high. I think we supported a charity called Dementia Singapore last year during one of my talks out here. And what I hope it will do is it will take us that one step closer to finding a cure. And dementia is one of the brutal and cruel diseases because currently there is no hope, there is no cure. And lots of great charities out there for other diseases have found cures, and there's been great breakthroughs, and we've not had that yet for dementia. And it's very soul destroying for people because they watch their family, their friends go through these terrible times. They spend lots of time and energy and money fundraising and volunteering, and there's still no cure. So what I hope is to, number one, deliver hope to people, remind people there are people out there doing great things, raising money for charity, volunteering, all the way to the nurses and the carers and those doing the research, the real on-the-ground heroes. But what I hope as well is that money can be used to fund real, genuine research. And I think it costs something like £20 or £30 an hour for a researcher. So I think we can fund quite a few thousand hours of real research and take us one step closer. Do
you think that there is a cure in the pipeline there then?
I have to. Otherwise, where would I find my hope to keep going when things get tough? I believe and I know there's a cure around the corner. And there's been great breakthroughs. In America, they've had a few drugs which have been approved, and they've got, I think, over 70% success rate with some different things. I'm not an expert in it, but I do know there's been some great breakthroughs in America. So I hope in time, the next 5, 10, 15 years, there will be some serious breakthroughs.
Wonderful.
We have to have hope, don't we?
Yes. Hope's really important. And hope, obviously, is an important theme in terms of the adventuring and some of the challenges that you've given yourself, not least the 7 marathons on 7 continents and swimming 7 marathon distances in 7 seas. Can you tell me a bit about that? Tell me how you came up with that.
Well, when I decided to go full-time, I was 22 years old, and I remember doing what every great adventurer in history has done. I announced to the world on LinkedIn, I am now a professional adventurer. And I got 2 likes. I remember this very clearly. And the first challenge was I ran 17 marathons in 17 days back to back. For 17 years, my granddad had dementia. I then finished that and I went on a series of smaller challenges, climbing here, running here, swimming here, rowing the English Channel, all these great things. But what I was really seeking that first year was my first big international project, multiple countries, continents, months, and hopefully to bring home my first world record, right? Very humbly sat in front of it, here. This is because we've been at schools today, by the way. I'm not just carrying this around with me, in my backpack, although my friends think I do. And the greatest thing we have now in the world of modern adventure is we have things like Google. We have things like the internet where we can look up things straight away. And this idea was born by starting with a running project and realizing when I finished it and I came home from Antarctica, no one had ever done the 7 seas and done the 7 continents, and I realised there I had an opportunity to break my own little bit of adventure history. And in the end, took 633 days. Tackled the running side first. Took me 14 months. The swims took 7 weeks, but there was all the planning, the training, everything in between, which is why it took almost 2 years.
Could you tell me about one of the more challenging or tough experiences that you might have had during that 633 days whilst you were trying to complete this?
Well, day 1 was in the Agafe Desert in northern Africa, and at 14 kilometres I got chased by a pack of wild dogs.
Wow.
And that was almost a metaphor, and I almost suppose a foreshadowing of the whole project to follow. And every challenge and every marathon had its own moments. In the Amazon rainforest, we were running on the indigenous land of the Quechua community, and a rainstorm started at 18 kilometres and lasted until 38 kilometres. That meant things like evacuation went out the window. It meant all our kit and everything got ruined. It was like running in a shower. Of course, there's all the risks of wildlife and everything like that too, bullet ants and snakes and everything you can imagine. In Antarctica, it was minus 25 degrees. So you're running through the risk of polar injuries and frostbite and the most remote conditions in the world. And then during the swims, there was very tough moments. The cold of the North Sea, the heat of the Arabian Sea, where it was 31 degrees, sea temperature in the water, which is tough for anyone, right? Let alone for a redhead with my complexion swimming through the Arabian Sea. I basically got fried for 5 hours. And then the Black Sea was tough. There was a swarm of jellyfish, about 400 of them, which I swam through. So every swim, every run had its own challenges, its own adversities, and also in some ways required its own resilience.
And what is it that keeps you going through all of that? I mean, that's remarkable.
Many reasons. When I started this journey, I started for my granddad. When I started this career at 22, I started because I was chasing something. I wanted to chase a life I loved, a career I loved. Now I'm in many ways motivated by fear of losing what I love. I'm so far from achieving anything I want to. I'm 1% of the success of what I want from my career. But I already can see the opportunity to lose success before you can find it. You know, when you find your purpose and you make it suddenly your career and you're 4 years in, it's like, I can't lose this. So I have many motivations. And what I've realized in those tough moments when you're running, you're swimming through adversity is you can't control your emotions. Your emotions go up and down like this. They're like a yo-yo. They're like almost like a wave in the ocean, but you can control your decisions. So I'll get to the start line of a challenge and I'll say my little motto to myself, I am the only person who can start this. I'm the only person who can finish, and I will take every step in between. I will finish. And that's my motto. So I know I'll be scared at some points, frightened, fearful, excited, happy, everything in between. I can't control how I'm going to feel, but I can control my decisions. Keep moving forward.
Mindset and motto. That's amazing.
Which we all need, right? You were sharing your story before we started filming. You've been on an adventurous journey as well in your own ways, and those lessons are the same. I'm not coming here over to Singapore to speak to schools or businesses to say, right, everyone become an adventurer. I know that's not what people want to do. And not everyone, maybe there are some people, but I'm not trying to encourage that. I'm trying to encourage to embrace the adventure spirit into their own lives, because the adventure spirit are the values that we spoke about before we started filming. Resilience, purpose, sacrifice, teamwork, perseverance. The values that we all need. If your challenges are like mine, up a mountain, deep in an ocean, if they're here in a boardroom or important meeting, if for a kid they're in an exam hall or a sports game, they're values that we all need.
Just on that point that you're talking about there, you know, it's not just a solo effort. You're starting it and you're finishing it, and that's what you're setting out to do. There's a lot of logistics to organise. If you're travelling around the world, you're raising the money. How do you go about leading, coordinating teams? How do you go about planning all of that?
That's the tough part. That is the toughest part of this whole journey, has been the behind the scenes. I started it thinking, right, to run and swim in these remote places would be the toughest part. It's not. It's the behind the scenes, and everyone can relate to that. You know, the build up, the planning, the basic steps just to get to the start line are the greatest adversity. So finding sponsorship, you know, in those early days was very, very difficult, and I did everything which people told me not to do. Bank loans, credit cards, bet on myself before anyone else would bet on me. Things like building a team and a support crew. It's very hard to convince people at the start to join you on an expedition when you haven't done anything. You've got nothing behind you, no CV, no experience. You have to be the most enthusiastic person in the room, so much over the top that almost they can't say no. Logistics, AI, Google, it's just using what you have available. We have the power of Zoom and Google Meet now, so I interview my support crews from the other side of the world before I even meet them. So I use what I have available when I can, with who I can.
So you're very, very self-determined. You're very good at improvising and being self-sufficient in that sense. Do you have any mentors? Do you have any people? Because there are adventurers in the world like you, but they're very few and far between, and presumably they're pretty untouchable. They're probably quite hard to communicate with because probably like you, they're spending their lives absolutely focused on the next thing that's coming along or setting up the next thing that's coming along. Do you have mentors in the adventurer community, and who are they, and what kind of advice have they given to you?
I've been lucky I've got about 12 mentors. Now, one of the things I'm most proud of, and if I was to start again, I would never change, is the importance I've put on having role models and mentors and people to look up to. And we think we live in a world now where when I visit lots of schools, I've visited over 30,000 young people now in the last few years. So many young kids out there don't want role models. They don't want to look up to people because they want to be their own hero, because, you know, social media has changed the way we perceive people, and I hate it because I think it's important to have people to look up to who have walked the path that we want to as well. And so many people have done things before us, and even if we're going into an unfamiliar and a slightly unusual career and job like being a professional adventurer, there are still amazing people out there who have done what we hope to do. So some of my adventure heroes are the likes of Jordan Wiley, Nick Butter. You may have heard of some of them, maybe not yet, but amazing adventurers with great values who probably should be far bigger names than they are. I've got heroes in the adventure world I've never had the pleasure to meet just yet. The Bear Grylls, the Steve Backshall, those who have achieved the pinnacle of commercial success whilst holding the values at the same time and having a big impact. I've got a funny story actually of how I tried to get to Bear Grylls but never managed to.
Oh, you've got to tell that story.
We'll have to. But then I've also got heroes which aren't in the adventure world. And what I've learned is we can take something from anyone. And actually some of the greatest advice I've ever been given has been from heroes and mentors and role models who are in different worlds, in the world of TV or business or music. And they're people who have probably never stepped into a marathon or an ocean swim or a jungle or desert, but they know the true values of that resilience and that purpose. And when things get tough and they were building their business or whatever they were trying to do, how they found that purpose to keep going and to never let that spark go out, because that's what we're all trying to do, especially in these early years, right? So some of the great advice I've been given is to be a professional adventurer, be professional, whether it's on a podcast, whether it's handing out a business card, meeting a child who wants maybe to sign their postcard, sending an email, whatever it is, be professional. I've been told so much. No one knows your story greater than you. Don't let anyone else share it before you have the chance to. So things like when you're trying to have agents or managers or publicity comes on board and stuff, and you realise actually no one knows what I want for my career better than me. No one knows how hard I've had to work to get here. So don't be afraid to step up in meetings, know your worth, know your value, even when you're at the start. Because it's very hard to set your value and set a price for a talk or whatever it is when actually you're not sure what to start at, but know your value. I've had a lot of great advice.
It's amazing. And you can give great advice as well. That's very, very insightful.
I'm not sure. It's a work in progress.
Could you tell me your story about Bear Grylls?
I will do, in the hope that maybe someone listening might be able to, connect me with him. I remember I went to he's been one of my heroes since I was a kid, right? Even before I wanted to become an adventurer, I've read all his books and I loved everything he stands for family, for faith, for his adventures, for the success he's achieved. And then when I decided to, transition from a hobby to career, I was like, well, he's the epitome, right? He is the number one in the adventure world. So multiple emails, multiple LinkedIn messages to him, to his team, everything. Never managed to get through. And in October, he did a very small event back in London, and he was promoting his latest book, and it was at like a church. And it was a very small venue, probably less than 2,000 people there. And I bought every ticket I could. I got 8 tickets. I said to all my friends, right, you're coming with me this evening to this event. I've already paid, for the ticket kind of thing. Just come down. And they're like, who is it? Like Bear Grylls. And I'm like, Louis, I don't love adventure. I only listen to it because of you. I don't want to. And I'm like, trust me, you're coming. Okay. And we got there, and I straight away scanned it. I was like, almost in the military. And I thought, right, there's like 6 or 7 entrance points. And I gave all my friends a business card, one of my business cards. And I said, right, go and stand by the entrance. And if he walks in to get to the stage, because the stage is so small, he's got to come from somewhere, just throw my business card at him, slap it, in his face, just put it in his pocket, his hand, in his his shirt pocket. And then I was like, we'll do it as well afterwards. Okay. So we're all waiting there, everyone's sat down, there's rustling, people are talking. And I'm thinking, right, well, we've got to go and get our seats at some point. And, we've kind of reserved them, left our jackets and our shirts down. I'm thinking, where is he? From a secret entrance underneath the stage, he comes up, welcome to the stage, Bear Grylls. And I think, I look at all my friends who are on the front entrance, and one of them, Matt, was like really ready to give it out, to give the card to him. And I was like, that is gutting. And then we tried again when the closing, and he rushed off. His bodyguards were protecting him, and I managed to get my card to one of his security members, but I never heard from him.
And that was it.
But I will get to him.
You will get to him. You will definitely. I can tell that you will get to him.
Yeah.
But I mean, from that story that you've told, you clearly are a leader. You clearly, you organise you and 7 of your mates to turn up. You've got them all waiting at the entrances with choreographed things to do with business cards to make sure that one gets to him. I'm really sad to hear that you only got the business card to the security card.
It only lit my fire more, because I will get there one day, and I'll share that story with him over a beer or something, I'm sure.
He'd probably find it extremely amusing. But you've clearly got a talent as a leader, and you can bring people along with what you're doing. So, in terms of decision making and facing sort of the unpredictable things that you face, it's something which, from our community at BritCham, it's something that we face a lot, especially at the moment in the world that we live in at the moment. Could you perhaps give an example of one of those decisions that you had to make, with the aim of us perhaps understanding a little bit more, what the decision-making process is in your head when those stakes are quite high.
Adventures and the challenge I'm most proud of were those 17 marathons I mentioned before. 17 consecutive days for the 17 years my granddad lived with dementia. And the reason I'm proud of it is not because it's the greatest challenge, people have done far more, but it's because I only had 3 months to train on my own, no support crew, no special team of me, no coaches at the time. I had 3 months to find the sponsorship, and that's when I knocked on the doors, took out the credit cards. I had 3 months to do all the logistics, the planning. It was totally a solo effort in many ways. Apart from I had friends and my parents with me who helped me on the days of the marathon. But I remember the first 9 days were bliss. I had people come and join me from the public. I had just the most incredible support from people who just rocked up, gave a £5 for the charity. I'm going to run a half marathon with you today, 1 mile. The youngest was 4 years old, the oldest was 75. It was like a collaboration of adventure and running and resilience and impact through dementia. I remember waking up on day 10 and just like that, everything changed. And on day 10, I woke up with shin splints, a chest infection, and a fever, all 3 in one go. And my mum, bless her, she was my chief support crew at the time. She still is in many ways. And she knocked on my bedroom door. She came in, ready for, to give me my sort of breakfast, get ready for the next day, son. And I was like shivering in pain. I had like the sweats. And my mum said, "You look like a ghost." And she walked over to the edge of my bed, and I was literally shivering like that. And she said, "Son, do you want to run today?" Looking up shivering, I said, "No." She said, "Well, do you want to quit?" Looking up shivering, I said, "No." She said, "Well, you better get out there and try." And it sounds very dramatic, but then she started to cry. And it was like one of these, we have these like tipping points and these turning points in life. And whatever happens, we'll look back and go, that day could have changed everything. When I was in that pain, and I remember rolling out of bed, putting on my running shoes, and I went to stand up, my left shin just like shot with glass. It ended up being a fracture, not just shin splints.
Oh my goodness.
It was horrendous. Stumbled to the front door, got outside, and I could barely walk. I was shuffling, and I was, it was so slow. My dad's phoning up all the local doctors and physios. "Please help my son, save my son." They'll put the phone down. Like, we're not helping someone who's causing himself the injury in the first place. I was like, well, if they don't understand that I'll never quit, they don't deserve to join my team. I was very naive, but I was telling the truth. I would not quit that challenge. But I'm so proud of that day 10. Sorry, long story short, I managed to get through day 11, day 12. Someone taught me this technique to wrap ice packs around my shins. They started to improve, and by day 17, I sprinted over the finish line. So it was like a real tough moment.
So you recovered while you were doing the challenge,
somehow,
but it's that decision
but it was a
to
decision on
keep
day
going.
10. Yeah, because waking up on day 10 when it felt like the world was telling me to give up, and I had what felt like the pressure of everything on my shoulders, announcing this new career publicly, having my first sponsors, raising money for charity, having a little team with me of friends and my parents. I couldn't quit, I couldn't give up.
Yeah.
And I just realised if I can take one step and another one, well, that's 100 metres. Okay, well that gets me to a kilometre, then get up to 2 kilometres, 3 kilometres. And before you know it, you have momentum. And that marathon on day 10 took 10 hours. So we could go right now and walk a marathon quicker than that. It would take us 8 or 9 hours. I was so slow. And it's because I was shuffling. I couldn't even put pressure on my left leg. And I'm so proud of that day 10. And I talk about it when I go and visit sort of corporate clients, like, what is your day 10? When was the day, or when is the day coming that you realise you're going to have to get out of bed, take that next step when it is the last thing in the world you want to do? And the only way you can get through it is by having that answer and that fuel inside your core, your soul, where it's almost like you don't have the choice.
Yeah.
And what I do when I'm in these tough moments on my expeditions, I don't have the choice to quit, I don't have the choice to give up. That's not even an option.
Yeah.
And that sounds naive, and there's different safety elements with that, and that's when you have support crews who make decisions for you sometimes and stuff like that. But when you're doing something like 17 marathons, there's no choice. It's a personal responsibility to everyone around you, but more so to yourself. I chose to be there, I chose to start, I chose to finish. If there's any blame, it's on me. If there's any success, it's on me. You carry full responsibility. And if it's so powerful to your soul, to your core, if you feel like you're fulfilling your purpose in the world, which I did then at 22, and I feel now today even more, it's the most powerful thing in the world.
That's amazing. Another thing on the sort of advice I think that would be quite useful to our community as well is the fact that, obviously we're in Singapore, we're on the other side of the world, and a lot of us in the British Chamber community, we travel quite a lot for business, and we're working across many different countries and cities, and building partnerships and doing business with people in a way where we need to build trust. So your projects, they depend very heavily on international collaboration. And what has that experience of traveling and working across different countries, what's that taught you about trust, and what's that taught you about building successful partnerships?
Well, I've realised that most people out there want to support. You know, we've just met today and you're so kind, enthusiastic, and we spoke, you know, off camera. You realise people actually care, and they are enthusiastic to what sometimes feels like your own little passion and your hobby. And you know, when I'm building my expeditions, I'll spend months locked in my little room, planning, training, doing everything, and you forget that actually there's a world out there who may be interested. So what have I learned about collaboration, international networking? I've realised the hardest part is starting. It's the scariest part, because you think you're going to get rejected. You will get rejected. I've had thousands of them, but the few times you get through that door, it's so worth it.
And that's essentially what happened to you when you came to Singapore for the first time. You had one gig, right?
Yeah. Last year I sent 3,500 cold emails for talks, and I managed to get a few. Some were in Singapore, some were in Bahrain, Dubai, different places around the world. But most of them rejected me because they said, well, why would we pay you to come over here and speak to us, and all these things. You have never spoke in an international school before, but you occasionally get one person who believes in you, says yes, and then you get through that door and deliver. That's the most important thing, right? And you know, Brighton College, Singapore, you know, I've spoken 3 times now the last 12 months. You know, I thought they'd be sick of me by now. I'm sure they are. I still have to keep, you know, coming up with these new stories of adventure, you know, which are all true, but it's like, I've got to find another story. But you just realise that actually, the mistake I made when I first started, I thought, right, to be an adventurer, I need my sponsors to be adventurous, I need my mentors to be adventurous, I need the people who I do talks for to be adventure-based businesses. Actually, that's the opposite of the market I'm going for. I want people who are in totally different worlds but are enthusiastic about it. Like you work in video production, as you mentioned, but you're kind of enthusiastic about my adventures. And you get people like schools where teachers right there aren't adventurers necessarily, or the students don't want to become adventurers, but you're going in and you're saying, well, you want to be a runner, you want to be a swimmer, you want to be a musician when you're older, you want to go to university. Let me share what I've learned from my adventures and what you can take into those journeys. And actually what I've realised is you can share that adventure spirit with anyone, and you don't need to look at the obvious answer of, oh, well, let me go to a mountaineering business in Singapore. No, let me go to the British, you know, Chamber of Commerce or the British High Commission, to schools, you know, all these amazing places, and do the opposite essentially of what everyone says or what, you know, you should believe.
Just in terms of that experience here in Singapore, what this time around here, what has been the best, most surprising experience that you've had here?
Well, we've spoke to over 3,000 kids, I believe, in the last 10 days. So spoke at 4 different schools, a few thousand children. I did a talk at the British High Commission last week, which was pretty special, and had coffee with Nick Mehta beforehand. Oh, sorry, His Excellency Nick Mehta, I should say, and he was the most genuine and lovely guy. And I spent time with his EA to Charlotte, and they were so humble, so kind, so enthusiastic, a bit like talking to yourself now, actually looking at you in the eyes and passionate and happy you're in, you know, the country, and celebrating and flying that British flag for adventure, for whatever it may be, for resilience, for a world record. And we had a bit of a coffee before, and then I went and did a talk downstairs for the team, and we did it in their pub in the offices. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And I just thought, this is so surreal to be on the other side of the world, sharing a little bit about my story with people who are so successful and talented and far more achieved than me. And I get to share my story a little bit, maybe have a small impact. I just thought it was amazing. So that's a pretty humbling moment. And I felt that when I was doing a talk at 10 Downing Street a few years ago. It's like, who knew these adventures can take you to all these amazing places? You don't need to go off and do the traditional thing from school or uni to achieve what you want to. You can do anything, but if you're passionate enough, you work hard, you take the risk, the sacrifice, these passions can take you sometimes into even greater rooms.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so for young British professionals who are over here, people who are perhaps a similar age to you, people that are looking to build a career in Asia, obviously there's the lesson that we've learned of you sending out 3,000 plus cold emails and messages on LinkedIn with one gig, and then look what it's got you and look what it's brought you the second time you're here. What lessons from your adventure, what other lessons perhaps, would translate directly into that for them?
Well, the first lesson is I probably should write better cold emails, because they're not very good odds. So I probably need to, you know, sharpen up however I reach out to people. What lessons have I learned? I mean, this is probably where I need your advice on how to build that successful career in Asia, because this is early days for me. I've been here 3 times in the last 12 months, but I've got a lot to learn. So I'm not sure is a truthful answer. What would you say?
That's really interesting when the tables get turned on you. And I was always taught to say, well, I'm doing the interview, but I think persistence and perseverance, those are extremely important qualities, and those are qualities that clearly you have.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's ever a case of you not writing the right messages to people. You will, I think that in this day and age, in terms of seeking out the right type of leads, if you like, and getting the right type of lead generation for yourself, I think it's a lot easier than it was before, because with social media, you can search out those people that you need to network with, or who will ultimately become your customers, perhaps. It's a process of learning, and I think that the approach that you have is definitely one which I think a lot of people can learn from in that sense.
I think getting through that knocking on the doors and getting that rejection is breaking through that fear of oh God, people are going to let me down, or
Yes.
I'm not going to even get an answer. It's knocking through that, and I think once you realise actually, 1 in 20 people reply, 1 in 50
Yes.
people reply. It's a numbers game. If I
Yes.
send 10 a day, that means every 10
That's
days
right.
I get a response.
And not allowing yourself to get disheartened because of rejection. It's getting over that rejection. And I think the older you get, the quicker you get over it.
Yeah. And it's an experience. You have to go through that. It's like a confidence building.
I think that one thing which I'm hearing a lot from you at the moment is this sort of mantra that you're talking about, that when you start something, you finish something, and it's on you, right? It's on you. So what you mentioned earlier, that little thing you say when you're on the starting line, if I was able to start this, or get here to start this, then I'm able to finish it, and I'm going to do that. A kind of promise to yourself, perhaps, in a way. So that's a very, very resilient mindset. But you also have your team around you. You're talking about your mother, and clearly she was playing into that, cultivating that mindset for you on the
100%.
day 10 story that you were talking about. But how do you do that when you've got, presumably now, when you go and do these bigger adventures, how do you do that? How do you keep the team around you motivated, let alone yourself, when you're going through those really tough times?
Well, you're right in the sense that I may be the one who's running or swimming, sometimes solo, and I may be the only one crossing the finish line, but I always have teams around me. My parents were my first support crew in life. They are the ones who taught me the power of resilience and sacrifice and believing in what you're doing. And even though they don't come from money or wealth or anything themselves, they try to give me every opportunity I ever could have as a kid. And I think that's hopefully why now I accept challenge and adversity in different ways. And by the age of 18, I'd moved house 15 times, went to 5 different schools, so I had an adventurous childhood in some ways. And then now when I'm working with teams, what I've realised is you have to carry that personal responsibility and that message of I have to finish this, I have to start this. Even when you've got teams around you, and of course it could be we have to do this, but also if you are the one who is running or swimming and you are the leader of your said group, you have to lead by example. And no one else's part of their job works, whether it's from nutrition to marketing to taking photos to doing PR. None of that work if I'm not actually running or swimming or doing whatever I said I will publicly do. You have to deliver on your promises. And if I quit halfway across, which I never will do, but if I was to, that's their job's gone as well. That's their incomes, that's their responsibilities, their mission, whatever it may be. So my mission comes first: run, swim, do whatever else I need to do. That's when the benefits come of raising money for charity, looking after hopefully my parents one day through sponsorship and talks and everything I else want to do. Those are all extras, but nothing matters, as my mum says, if you don't do the thing. And my thing is running, swimming, kayaking, whatever adventure it may be. I have to deliver on the basic, which is that. Do the basics first. If you skip the steps, you skip success. Do the basics first and everything else will follow.
What's the next adventure going to be?
I'm working on my next kayaking expedition. which I'm excited about. I've never done a big ocean or sea kayak, so I'm working on an international world record, which is going to be in the kayaking space, which is hopefully going to be early summer. And I'm just waiting for some approvals from different sort of bodies and national parks and things like that. So I won't give away the secret just yet. My big mission is I want to achieve 10 world records and £1 million for dementia research by 30. My long-term dream is I'd like to become one of the greatest modern-day adventurers. That's naive, it's ambitious to say, I know, but I was naive and ambitious when I said at 22 I'm going to become a professional adventurer in the 21st century. So it's ambitious, it's naive, but I mean it, and I hope I can deliver on it.
Do you have one final piece of inspiration that you can share with us?
There's some people out there in the marathon space, the adventure space, who claim that they're fearless. They don't experience pain, don't experience discomfort. To me, that's not real. As humans, we're not invincible. We will go through tough moments, difficult moments, and our emotions will struggle at times, and that's okay. But we don't need to be fearless. And likewise, we don't need to be perfect. We don't need to be glamorous. Adventure, in the same way, is life, because adventure is a reflection of life. The ups and downs that we go through, they're just heightened. You don't need to be perfect. You just need the simple ability to never give up, move through things when times get tough, because they will. Don't control your emotions, because we can't. Control your decisions. And if you can, build a team around you who believe in something so much that they are willing to work hard and sacrifice in their own ways to help you get there. So there's many lessons that I'm still working out, truthfully. I've got a long way to go too.
Amazing advice. Louis Alexander, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the British Chamber of Commerce Singapore's podcast channel. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and review on Spotify, Apple, Google and other podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this episode, please spread the word by sharing it across your network. For more information about the Chamber and what we do, visit our website at www.britcham.org.sg and tune in next time for a brand new episode.